Welcome everyone to History Happy Hour Fighting Idaho's Wildfires. I am Allison Espindola. I'm the Events and Rentals Coordinator here at the Idaho State Museum. The Idaho State Historical Society, which includes the Idaho State Museum, the State Historic Preservation Office, the Idaho State Archives, and the Old Idaho Penitentiary and Historic Sites, is dedicated to preserving and promoting Idaho history through programming like tonight and also through on-site visits. For those of you that are a little bit newer or new to History Happy Hour, welcome. This is a monthly virtual program that connects you, our visitor, with community members and experts across the state to talk about history, tradition, preservation, and more. So to learn more about History Happy Hour and all the other events that are going on at the Idaho State Museum, you can follow our social media pages, or you can check out our website at history.idaho.gov. One important part of History Happy Hour is hearing from all of you joining us this evening. I love reading your comments and your questions to the panelists. And so to start that off tonight, I have a question for those of you joining us this evening. And that is, what are you drinking tonight? I mean, it is a happy hour after all. So go ahead and open up that chat down at the bottom of your screen and share in that chat what you have in hand. If you don't have anything yet, maybe you put in there what you wish you were drinking on tonight. While you're typing away, I do want to let you know that this chat right here that you're typing in is the spot to put your questions and comments for the panelists throughout the night. After our discussion, then I will read those out to the panelists for their answers. And I will try my best to get all of them answered tonight, or as many as we can while we're together this evening. Oh my gosh, so many good options for beverages. Now I'm thirsty just reading them. But thank you for sharing. I'll jump right in and get into it. So tonight's event is in connection with the newest exhibition here at the Idaho State Museum, Facing the Inferno, the Wildfire Photography of Kari Greer, which opened to the public just this last Saturday on April 9th. So this photo exhibit by Idaho photographer Kari Greer, who specializes in wildland fire photography and editorial photojournalism, provides a look into the increased fire activity across the states of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. It shows the intensity of wildfires and the experiences of firefighters who face them. And with me tonight to talk about this important topic, our panelists, Jared Jablonski and Burk Miner. So Jared Jablonski is a wildland fire mitigation and education specialist for the Boise district of Bureau Land Management. His 27 years working in wildland fire include experience in fire suppression, hazardous fuel reduction, prescribed fire, fire prevention, and fire information. Burk Miner is the co-founder of Wildland Firefighters Foundation. The foundation has been taking care of injured and fallen firefighters since 1994, after the Smoke King in Colorado occurred. Burk works closely with shot crews, smoke jumpers, and everywhere in between. There are very few situations that he and his foundation have not dealt with. They work hard on workers' comp cases, all the way down to working with the Honor Guard for memorials. Burk has dedicated 30 plus years in wildland fire and is a voice for the boots on the ground. So thank you both for being here tonight. I thought it would be great to start us off this evening if Jared and Burk, if you could share a little bit more about yourselves and the organizations that you're a part of. Burk, do you want to take it away first?
There we go. Thank you, Allison, for the introductory there. As you stated, Burk Miner, I'm actually the executive director of the Wildland Firefighter Foundation. The foundation came out of the grassroots effort from a 14 fatality incident in Storm King in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, called Storm King Mountain. You know, that it kind of just opened a door for the need in the community. We understood the need that was there. And listen, back in 1994, things weren't, you know, as far as communication, getting out to families, getting family transport, things weren't totally in line at that time as we have them today. So we were an instrumental start in in supporting the family network back there, working with all the agencies to kind of bring this new level of care to the families of a fallen or injured wildland firefighter. So, over the years we've created a monster. We've been international for the last 2 years. That's how big and fast we've been growing. But we're taking care of firefighters all over the planet, really. People say that the West Coast has a fire problem. It's actually globally. 2 years ago, Australia almost burned off the face of the map. So it does show that it is a global reach, and we're happy to be there and do what we do and take care of the people that we do.
Thank you for sharing. And that's amazing that, really your reach is global, and unfortunate, but wonderful that you are here and you're doing the work that you're doing. Thank you.
We're honored to be doing it.
Jared, how about you?
Yeah, hello, Jared Jablonski. I'm mitigation education with the Boise District Bureau of Land Management, the Fire and Aviation section. And the BLM's mission across the nation, of course, is to protect public lands for people to use for recreation and hunting and all kinds of fishing and everything like that. And so, I really love being a part of the fire suppression and hazardous fuel reduction, as well as fire mitigation portions of protecting our public lands. It's super important to protect that for future generations. And so right now, as a mitigation education specialist, I really focus on fire prevention, what causes fires and how the public can help prevent that. And then also I focus on hazardous fuel mitigation around people's properties to help folks protect their homes from wildland fires, especially when they live in that wildland urban interface area.
Thank you. Well, and that's an incredible way of thinking about it too, and how fire can touch and impact the lives here in Idaho and people's homes, as well as work and life and everything else in the land here. So I do have another follow-up question for you, Jared. And what is the impact of wildland fires on Idaho?
Well, wildland fire can have an impact on a multitude of facets. So obviously people's lives and property, firefighters' lives, they're all impacted by a wildland fire. No one wants to see anyone lose a life or a home or livestock or horses or anything like that. And then of course there's impacts on our air quality. There's impacts on our ecosystems. We've lost a ton of sagebrush, and it affects lots of different species, particularly sage grouse and mule deer and different things like that. So it's super important to have a balance between suppressing wildland fires, but also trying to get more focused on preventative measures as far as mimicking fire in the wildlands. So prescribed fire, mechanical treatments, whatever we can do to help try to ease this problem of our overabundance of fuels on the landscape from suppressing fires for so long.
That's interesting that you bring that up about, the difference between fire suppression and the prescribed fires and what that does for the environment. Thank you. And Burk, I feel Jared touched a little bit on this about the impact of fires on firefighters and lives, but could you share your perspective on what the impact of wildland fires are on the people and the land?
Jared's the professional here tonight for the lands, but I'm happy to speak about the people, and we call them boots on the ground. Already he said he's out doing prescribed fire, and his people are out there and they're already working, right? In another month and a half, 2 months from now, we'll be in full-blown fire season. Those folks will be working overtime, and overtime to people that are listening. I don't know what kind of jobs you have, but, as far as boots on the ground for wildland fire, they work thousands of hours of overtime through the season. And seasons all start out good and everybody's anxious to get back to work and gung-ho, but come the middle of the summer, towards the downhill slope of the summertime, they're burnt out. They're not machines. We call it a 1,000-mile stare. They get out there. That's where their situational awareness comes in. That they take it on the buddy system to make sure, how you doing today, man? How's your situational awareness? Let's not get too fatigued to understand the dangers we're in and I'll overlook all of our training, right? it does happen when they get tired like that. And, you know, unfortunately, when that stuff starts happening, that's, you know, the foundation that I run gets busy. And it's just how it goes. The seasons are getting longer, harder, and it's this, you know, it's the same manpower that we have. I say it a lot, they're only human. So it definitely affects the boots on the ground.
And you shared earlier about how, you know, really fires are happening now. And you just mentioned that as well. You know, people are already out there and they're working in this. And, you know, what is it like for kind of that after, you know, after a fire on the land, after, you know, working out there for so long? What is that transition like?
You know, if they're out fighting fire right now, their transition is to another incident. And this is what we're talking about. You know, they just keep going and going and going. They work 14 on, sometimes 21, and they come home for only 2 days, and they're right back out. So there is no transition until fire season's over. It's only transition to the next incident.
Thank you. And Jared, from a land perspective, after a wildland fire comes through, or, you know, that even prescribed fire, what is it like on the land afterwards?
There you go. Yeah, so fires can be very devastating on the landscape. You know, fire is a natural part of many ecosystems and an important part, but generally in the past, before a lot of fire suppression was going on, you know, you're getting more, less severe burning with like nice understory burns in the forest, patchy mosaic patterns. And then, you know, as these forests and our vegetation, and even in the deserts here, has been, we've been suppressing fires, it becomes overgrown, decadent. And what happens is you get very intense fires that are very difficult to stop, if not impossible, depending on the weather conditions and how dry the vegetation is. And what happens is it can really damage the soils, and what you'll see is a very difficult time for that vegetation to come back. And then, of course, we have a lot of invasive species here in this area, the cheatgrass and the medusa heads of the world, that outcompete our local native vegetations. And so what you end up is getting a vicious fire cycle, because the intervals of return on those vegetation, as far as burning, they're light, flashy fuels, so they tend to burn once every 4 years, whereas the sagebrush is more of a 40 to 50 year when it's supposed to be burning in its natural cycle. So the more fire you get, the more brush you burn, replaced by cheatgrass and so on and so forth. So can be a nasty cycle.
Thank you for sharing about that. So I do, before we jump into our next question for the two of you, I have another question for our audience tonight. It's actually a poll. So I'm going to pop up a quick poll on the screen for you. Push the wrong button. So my question for those of you that are joining us tonight is, what other topics are you interested in learning about? So one of the things that is important for us is to find out things that you would like to know more about, or folks that you would like to connect with. If you don't see the poll, or you don't see an option on that poll that you feel best fits you, feel free to put that in the chat and type away. A reminder that chat is where you can type those questions. I see a few questions have already started coming in. So feel free to keep putting them in there. And after kind of our discussion here, then I'll start reading those out. So thank you for those that are voting on that poll, really sharing about what other topics you are interested in learning about. And you can answer more than one. So feel free to answer multiple times or multiple options on there. I'm going to leave that up for just another second. Perfect. All right, I'm popping it down. If you didn't have a chance to share in that poll, again, feel free to type any ideas for the future. If there's people we should be talking to or topics we should be talking about, I'd love to hear from you. But let's jump back to Jared and Burk. So my last question for you both is, what is the public's role in wildland fires? What can they do or not do for the future? Burk, do you want to take it away on this one?
You know, public is certainly that diversity of ignition of fires. So, you know, I would start out with my answer would be to educate themselves on what they're doing around safety chains thrown by cars. What are you doing on 4th of July? You know, how carried away are we getting? Things like that. But, you know, just common sense things, I would suppose, for the general public. But I can't emphasize enough for them to educate themselves on fire and how it affects their communities, and, you know, maybe what area are they in with, you know, Jared spoke about urban interface. This is where Wildland meets, you know, the public basically. And as we grow as communities and we start building cabins out in the woods and this, that, and the other, you know, those are all subject to wildfire, you know, defensible space around your homes, everything like that. Come together as communities and as homeowners in their own communities, have those conversations. You know, what's our subdivision look like? Do we have this overgrowth? Can we get it out of there? Anything like that. But, you know, I'm sure Jared can speak more to that volume for sure.
Yes, Jared, would you like to jump in on that answer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Burk hit it the nail on the head. Really, the fire prevention number would be the number one thing they can do to help. So be proactive in learning. What we do our best to reach out, but you can't reach everyone. So do your best to, if you're going out and recreating, go to Idaho Fire Info and look at prevention tips, or check out some different websites and learn what you can do to help prevent wildfires. And then also, if you live in the wildland urban interface, really, reach out to Idaho Firewise or give me a call and learn about how to protect your property, because firefighters, especially if that's their community, are sometimes they're gung-ho people, and they may put themselves in harm's way to try to protect your house. So the more you can do before a fire, the less, the safer it is for them to operate in there. And we want to protect our firefighters, and no firefighter's life is worth anyone's home. So, please do what you can on your property to make it safer for wildland firefighters, because it's not a matter of if you live in the wildland urban interface, it's not a matter of if a fire is going to impact your area, it's when, really, honestly.
Thank you. And Burk, really quickly, before we jump into audience questions, you shared earlier with me that you have something coming up soon at your site that might be a nice way for the public to know more about.
Sure. So the Wildland Firefighter Foundation has built a new facility up here by the National Interagency Fire Center on Airport Way. We've been working on our facility for about 1.5 years now, and we're going to have our grand opening on May 20th. We're up and running. Obviously, we take care of situations out here on a daily basis, but just to be welcome in the community and things like that, our grand opening is May 20th, and we're going to have 8 different interpretive stations in here for wildland fire. And not to the extent that you guys do at the museum, but our thing is kind of, we get a lot of fallen firefighters' families in here, and 8 times out of 10, that firefighter, that hotshot, that smoke jumper, he's not going into great detail with his family about what he does out there. The families understand, yes, my loved one's a wildland firefighter, but you go point blank with him, well, what's he do out there? Well, he fights fire, right? So my stations are geared towards the families that come in here to give them a little more knowledge about what their firefighters doing out there. Different aspects of what's a hotshot, what's a smoke jumper. Pretty similar, pretty simple interpretive stations anyway, but just for families to get the gist of what their loved ones doing out there. And also for the public in general, it's going to be good information. We hope to have some, busloads of school kids up here. And, obviously the main station we have here is we have walls of honor on all of our walls, and those are pictures of fallen firefighters. And to walk through and see what the ultimate price is out there for boots on the ground when they pay it, is tremendous in itself. So we have huge, a lot of pictures here, things like that, but we're getting real excited to open up here to the public.
Yes, thank you for sharing about that. I hope it's okay that I brought it up, because I got excited about it.
Absolutely, thank you.
Welcome. Well, we do have some time for some audience questions that have popped in. So thank you again. Feel free, keep typing those questions away. This first question pertains particularly to the areas here in Idaho that have just had some precipitation. I don't want to say the snow word, but it did happen in April. Just to put that on the record, it snowed in April. Not happy about it, but will this help relieve any of our drought issues? That's the first question. So Jared, do you want to take a stab at this question?
Yeah, I don't think it was enough precip to really affect the drought very much. As far as our fire season, a little bit of precip can mean more growth in the desert area. So actually a little bit more vegetation on the ground, which not necessarily is not fire-wise is not necessarily a good thing, but it also, the forest is a little bit different. So it can add to the fuel moistures there in the forest and maybe put a little bit of a delay to their fire season, or a little, actually make it maybe a little more normal, because right now we're super, super dry. So the drier it gets, the earlier the forest fire season starts. Whereas down here in the desert, we pretty much always, it's creeping back a little bit as time goes on, but we generally really start to pick up fires beginning in June, and then it really ramps up around the 4th of July.
Thank you. So another question that came in is, when was the earliest fire season starting in the Boise area? So earliest that the fire season started here.
I mean, early as far as fires, sometimes we've picked up fires in March already. This, before the green up really happened, and before this moisture we just had, we had a handful of fires, very small. But as far as a really getting an active fire season, mid to late May, I've seen happen before, where if it's really dry, it starts to cook down here a little bit earlier than normal. And like I said, the Forest Service is usually a little bit behind, a little bit further down the road. So I can't speak to when the forests start on fire, but it's generally, just a month or so behind us down here in the desert.
Thank you for sharing about that. It does seem early, but thankfully that you are all here to help keep everyone safe. This question is for Burk, I think, although I feel, Jared, you could probably jump in on this one too. But what are the greatest dangers facing Idaho and wildland firefighters today?
I'm happy to take a stab at this. The greatest danger for wildland firefighters in Idaho is obviously the new growth of the sagebrush. We're experiencing different kind of fuels on the ground than we have per se 20 years ago due to drought and things like that. And they're called flashy fuels. And this is, fire in these type of areas, and Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, in the desert, but they are so flashy that we're scared to put boots on the ground around them. So we're getting a lot of aviation, firefighting, and things like that. Retardant from the planes, water from the planes, on these flashy incidences like that Idaho's been experiencing. So.
Thank you. Jared, is there anything you want to add on to that for Burk?
Yeah, no, I mean, the flashy fuel types, if you get, they tend to, if it's in cheatgrass, it'll burn as fast as the wind in the summertime. So basically as fast as the wind blows. So it can be very dangerous, and definitely you see a lot of backing off to road systems and trying to get out ahead of those fires and doing some burning, things like that. And then of course also in the forest as well, you see all the beetle kill and things that in the forest, once the forest gets overgrown or unhealthy, you can definitely see some extreme fire behavior. That's through the roof type stuff where there's nothing you can do but kind of pull back and try to put in some lines farther out away from the fires. And I would say also one thing that people might not realize is that we're having a lot of retention kind of issues, especially in like a middle of a firefighter's career. So we're starting to see a little bit of our depth as far as experience starting to go away, and there's a lot of folks retiring, especially within the next 5 years. So that's one concern that we have is we're losing a lot of our experience either to other jobs or to retirement. So.
If I could chime in on that exact conversation we're having, just last year, late season, Eagle had a nice little fire up there in the brush. That thing went over the hillside in, less than an hour. And people of Eagle watched that. The column came in the air, and then all of a sudden you got the seaplanes up there, and thank goodness for them to put retardant lines around the homes and everything like that. But those are prime examples of how fast, fire can move and everything like that. It devastated Eagle a little bit there just in an afternoon.
Moves fast. That it is a good segue into this other question that came in from the audience, and what are the primary causes of fires and what ones can actually be managed?
For the Boise BLM, our primary cause for fires over is for the last, I don't know, 5-10 years is vehicle related. So dragging, not securing your chains, dragging it, pulling off over dry vegetation, the undercarriage of your vehicle could get very hot, your exhaust and things can start a fire. Overheating vehicles, pulling off over vegetation, catalytic converters can kick out hot fragments that can start, especially on grades, going up grades. If you get a flat tire, if your tire is not properly inflated, or you just get a flat, the sparks from the rim, or other vehicle related stuff would be, like UTVs and things like that. So it's vehicle followed by last year, the second leading cause was target shooting. So we have a fire prevention order in place May 10th through October 20th on BLM lands that prevents the use of incendiary ammunition, exploding targets, shooting metal targets. And so that's in place because we've really started to see a lot of the shooting related fires. And what was the second part to that question? I'm sorry.
What ones can actually be managed? So what types of fires or starts of fires can be managed?
Any kind of human caused fires can be managed with the proper precautions taken, for sure. If you clear your area where you're shooting, shoot away from, bare dirt, away from vegetation. Don't go shooting if it's hot, dry, and very windy. Don't shoot steel targets. Don't shoot any of the stuff that we say not to, exploding targets. As far as your vehicles, just proper maintenance and securing your chains, checking your tires, and just and then also we've been working with Idaho Department of Transportation and other counties on the road systems to try to make more of a space along the aprons of road systems for people to pull off without having to worry about going over dry vegetation. So
thank you. So Burk, another firefighter related question, and what traits or characteristics are required to be a successful wildland firefighter? And how can you become one?
Well, as Jared just said, a lot of our experience is retiring and doing things. And to become a wildland firefighter, you have to get your red card. That's, taken through several different classes. And then normally people start out on a private contract engine, something like that, part-time engine, full-time agency engine. Then they move up into hot shot crews and smoke jumpers and things like that. But, there's usually a little starting point anyway, and Jared could probably vouch for that as well. But it takes its starts just like any other, profession. You got to start somewhere. So getting your red card and getting out there and getting on the list somewhere and actually getting on an engine or getting on the job somewhere, and then your career started, who knows where it goes from there. What was the second part of that?
That was how can you become one? But I feel like you answered that pretty well. Perfect. Well, thank you both so much. We are right at that 6:30 mark. So I'll go ahead and wrap us up for the evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And thank you to our panelists, Burk Miner and Jared Jablonski. Appreciate you both for being here again. The Idaho State Museum is committed to providing opportunities like this for you, our visitor, while at home or at one of our sites. So one way to do that is by finding out more about you and what you are interested in. So thank you for those that shared in the chat about some of the topics or you took the poll. There's another opportunity. We'll put a link to a quick survey in the chat, but you'll also be receiving an email tomorrow that will have this survey in there. So feel free to please take that survey, share with us about yourselves, There will also be links for more information about the Wildland Firefighter Foundation and the Boise District BLM. For up-to-date information about other events, such as our next History Happy Hour coming up on May 11th, how to become a member for the Idaho State Historical Society, or to sign up for our newsletter, please visit our website at history.idaho.gov, or you can stay up to date on our social media pages. We hope to see you at one of our sites again soon. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Bye.